Welcome to the Ahimsa Peace Symposium 2021. I'm your MC for the day. My name is Karthik Mohandas. And before we begin, I'd like to announce and spell out some house rules. This, of course, is an online Zoom conference call, video call, and we'd request everyone to keep their videos switched on because we will be taking photographs right throughout this event. And we'd like all of our attendees to be there, or at least have a memorabilia of a very good start to the Ahimsa Peace Symposium. Once again, brought to you by Saroni Foundation and by the Rotary Club, Chapter Strathfield. Before we begin, there's one thing that does need to be done, which is I'd like to acknowledge all the elders and leaders, past, present, and future of the land that we are assembling upon. Extremely thankful to them. Today is a very special day. It marks the birth anniversary of a man with a godlike spirit. He managed to find something deep within and gave us a lot of lessons and taught us some great insights, not just into human nature, but also on how to use nonviolence as an integral part of your life to face some of the challenges and also to fight oppression, violence, and also bring about peace and harmony amongst different people. I'd like to start by two quotes that I think are very relevant from Mahatma Gandhi's book, My Experiments with Truth, which he did very intensely. I'm not sure all of us can do that, but two quotes which are very relevant in today's day and age. The first one is, yet even differences prove helpful when there are tolerance, charity, and truth. And I can definitely say the Rotary Club and also Saroni Roy Foundation stands for these principles, which we don't find in abundance today. The second quote from his book, which is extremely insightful, the short-term attention span world that we live in today, he says, with some, fasting is of no avail because assuming that mechanical fasting alone will make them immune, they keep their bodies without food, but feast their minds upon all sorts of delicacies, thinking all the while that they'll eat and what they will drink after the fast terminates. Very relevant in today's day and age, and we'll have some more insightful words from the speakers who are lined up because they are far more knowledgeable than me on the subject, and also the great man, Mahatma Gandhi. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce someone very special and also my co-host for the evening, who is extremely articulate and succinct. I'd like to invite Rick Vasilla. He's a member of the Rotary Club of Strathfield. He's the Assistant Governor of Sydney Central Clubs. To give you a brief background, he's a Sydney-based IT professional and a relatively recent Rotarian, having joined the Rotary Club of Strathfield in 2015. He became president of that club for the period 2017 to 18 of the Rotary year and was appointed Assistant Governor for the Sydney Central Cluster of Clubs from July 2018. I'd like to welcome my co-host, Rick Vasilla.
Thank you, Karthik. That's a wonderful introduction. And hello, everybody. Good to see you all here joining today. And so on behalf of Saroni Roy of the Saroni Roy Foundation and the president of the Rotary Club of Strathfield, Mr. Taya Ponaya, I welcome you all, wherever in the world you may be joining us from today. And I do know that there are some of you joining us from outside this country. So welcome to you all. And welcome to this inaugural Ahimsa Peace Symposium 2021, a tribute, as we've heard, to the global peace hero Mahatma Gandhi, on the occasion today of his 152nd birth anniversary and in his honor, the United Nations Day of Nonviolence. This event today, as we've heard, is presented jointly by the Saroni Roy Foundation and the Rotary Club of Strathfield, a member club of Rotary International and Rotary District 9675 here in New South Wales in Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a stunning array, an absolutely stunning array of special guests joining us today, and I would like to especially welcome the following distinguished dignitaries today. Firstly, a very special welcome to the High Commissioner for India to Australia, His Excellency, Mr. Manpreet Vora. Welcome to you today. representing Rotary District 9675 and the 58 Rotary clubs spanning the Sydney to the Illawarra region in which the Rotary Club of Strathfield belongs are, firstly, District Governor, Mr. Jeremy Wright, AM. Past District Governor and District Rotary Foundation Director, Mr. Keith Roffey. Past District Governor, Ms. Diane North, OAM. District Governor-elect and District Ambassador for Empowering Women and Girls, Dr. Janice Hall. District Governor nominee, Ms. Tonya Barnes, and our District Membership Director, Mr. Renga Rajan. A very fine array of Rotarians, senior Rotarians from our district here today. Also a very special welcome to the Consul General of India in Sydney, the Honourable Mr. Manish Gupta. Another special welcome to the federal member for the seat of Reed in New South Wales and honorary member of the Rotary Club of Strathfield, the Honourable Dr. Fiona Martin MP. Welcome to you, Fiona. Equally special welcome to the state member for the seat of Strathfield in New South Wales and also an honorary member of the Rotary Club of Strathfield, the Honourable Ms. Jodie McKay MP. Welcome to you today, Jodie. I'd also like to welcome the state member for the seat of Granville in New South Wales, the Honourable Ms. Julia Finn, MP. And today presenting a video message, as he's unable to be here, will be the federal member for the seat of Berowra in New South Wales, Australia, and also chair of the Parliamentary Friends of India, the Honourable Mr. Julian Leeser, MP. Representing the Hills Shire Council in New South Wales, we welcome Councillor Reena Jetty. We also welcome former professor from Delhi University, founder and president of Shanti Sayog, a Gandhian NGO, and the Shanti Sayog Centre for Nonviolence, Dr. Suman Khanna Agarwal. And finally, we welcome the Partnership Development Manager with the Institute for Economics and Peace and a Rotary Peace Fellow, Ms. Patricia Garcia, AO. Welcome to all our special dignitaries today. I also welcome any other diplomatic representatives, parliamentarians, councillors, and Rotarians that may be joining us today from any part of the world, and I welcome all guests in the audience. I do hope you enjoy today's proceedings. This inaugural Ahimsa Peace Symposium will feature a virtual panel of inspirational guest speakers and acts as a global community forum to discuss Mahatma Gandhi's vision of Ahimsa, the philosophy of nonviolence. This aligns very well with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and gives voice to the global Women, Peace and Security agenda, the theme for today. Rotary International has a key role to play here too. Rotary has 7 areas of focus, and the first of which is peace and conflict prevention and resolution. As a humanitarian organization, peace is a cornerstone of Rotary's mission. We believe when people work to create peace in their communities, that change can have a truly lasting and global effect. Please enjoy today's symposium. Thank you, Karthik.
Thank you, Rick. And you heard Rick give a brief introduction and the lineup of our dignitaries and speakers as well. We've got some very distinguished speakers amongst us, and they're going to be imparting us with kernels of thought that I hope leaves us with something to think about and act upon. Before I introduce another spoke of the wheel of APS 2020, I'd like to make a plea or suggest that some of the speakers are going to give us some words of wisdom. And I'd like to say only one thing, pulling another quote from Mahatma Gandhi, saying that you can wake a man only if he's really asleep. No effort that you may make will produce any effect upon him or her if he or she is merely pretending to sleep. So we do hope there's wholehearted participation. If you like something or if you have some thoughts, you can always text to everyone in the group so that we can also benefit from your thoughts as well. Now I'd like to introduce another team member who worked tirelessly to make this symposium happen. It's none other than the president and the founder of the Saroni Roy Foundation, Ms. Saroni Roy. Something about her, She's a new member of the Rotary Club of Strathfield. She's also an Australian actor, and she's also the co-chair of Equity, Diversity, Media, Entertainment and Arts Alliance. Saroni was named Miss India Australia Goodwill Ambassador at Mrs. India Australia 2018 beauty pageant, and has been an ambassador for the Institute of Economics and Peace. Apart from this, she also happens to be a cancer survivor, and she's faced invisible disabilities and many other challenges that she's surmounted with her undying spirit to win and to champion causes that she believes in, much more to do with her own activism about self-consciousness, body appearance, and acceptance. And she's also, as I had mentioned before, the CEO of the Saroni Roy Foundation, which works tirelessly towards all these efforts and endeavors. So a big hand to all the people who made this happen from Rotary and also from the Saroni Roy Foundation. Thank you so much. But before we begin, I think it's only right to say a vote of thanks to everyone present here and also the people who work tirelessly. So thank you once again. And now we proceed, and we'd like to call upon our first speaker of the evening, none other than His Excellency Manpreet Vohra ji, who is the High Commissioner of India to Australia, to give the opening address. A big round of applause for Manpreet Vohra ji.
Well, thank you, Karthik and Rick, Your Excellencies, Members of Parliament, Councillors, my colleague, Consul General Manish Gupta, friends, Rotarians, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste, good afternoon to all of you in Australia, and of course, good morning and good evening to those of you who might be in other geographies or who might be sleeping, as Karthik just told us. Thank you, Saroni, and to your foundation for your sterling efforts in conceiving and delivering this impressive event, the Ahimsa Peace Conference, Peace Symposium 2021, as we celebrate Mahatma Gandhi's 152nd birthday today, the 2nd of October, also declared by the United Nations as the International Day of Nonviolence. Mahatma Gandhi is a global icon whose philosophy, visions, and actions, struggle for justice and change, and belief in truth and nonviolence were of such extraordinary value that he is universally acknowledged as perhaps the greatest human being who ever walked on this planet. As an Indian, I have always been proud of the special identity that each one of my compatriots enjoys anywhere in the world, thanks to the worldwide recognition of Gandhiji, Bapu, the father of our nation, and his principles and his teachings. There are many things that Gandhiji is remembered for, from politics to economics to society, and his principles and ideals still guide Indians and many others. But perhaps his most vital contribution to the world and to all humanity is his concept of ahimsa, or nonviolence, as a way of life. There is simply no other way to realize the quintessence of that ancient Indian thought and belief in Vasudeva Kutumbakam, or the world is one family. As Gandhiji wrote, and I quote, "Nationalism is not the highest concept. The highest concept is world community. I would not like to live in this world if is not to be one." Unquote. That, ladies and gentlemen, is community, and that is cohesion. Even with his simple and frugal life, Gandhiji energized a whole nation that for centuries had been dulled by the oppression of colonialism. He led a freedom struggle with the novel idea of ahimsa and passive resistance that the British Empire could not even comprehend, let alone conquer. he demonstrated how to quietly bear so much suffering that it would shame and fundamentally change the very mindset of the oppressor. He taught us to hate sin, but not the sinner. He insisted on the equality of all races and the unity of all mankind. He made no distinction between relatives and strangers, Indians and foreigners, white and colored, Hindus and other faiths. He gave women the pride of place in society. He revived rural and village economies, giving them pride and hope. For him, the most important people were those who were the poorest, the weakest, and the most underprivileged. The welfare and dignity of all was his main goal. Clearly, Mahatma Gandhi was an enlightened man, well ahead of his time. Perhaps no other modern leader comes close to exercising such influence and inspiration over public life for such a long period. Anti-war protesters, feminists, environmentalists, development economists, and people fighting for social justice have all invoked Gandhiji's name in their struggles. Martin Luther King once said, and I quote, "Christ gave us the goals and Mahatma Gandhi the tactics," unquote. Gandhiji's message, which exalts non-violence as a means as well as an end and a way of life, actually, and which demands that politics should be based on satya or truth, has found resonance in diverse cultures, be they in Asia, Africa, or the Americas. It would be no exaggeration to say that it has augmented the moral resources of humanity. To understand why Gandhiji remains relevant even 73 years after he passed away becomes easier when you recall what the Mahatma stood for during his life. This has been encapsulated beautifully by the distinguished political scientist and Gandhian, Professor Mary Elizabeth King. She describes it thus, and I quote, "Gandhi was against racism, against colonialism, against the caste system, for popular democratic participation, against economic exploitation, against the degradation of women, against religious and ethnic supremacy. As long as there is strife, hostilities, ethnic cleansing, religious unrest, internal conflicts, and threats of military occupation, people will turn to Gandhi. His usefulness will not end unless conflict ceases," unquote. Today, our world is certainly not entirely free of war, hate, racism, intolerant ideologies, feudal practices, gender discrimination, massacre of the environment, and the misery that all this causes. Indeed, humanity is passing through a critical period. This makes Gandhiji's philosophy of peace and nonviolence and its intimate links with justice, development, and nature all the more important. If we all re-emphasize that Gandhiji's teachings, particularly nonviolence, must become the basis of personal, public, and social life, then we will certainly see more harmonious, cohesive, cooperative, and resilient communities. And there will certainly be greater hope for the well-being and future of our planet. I know that many of you are Gandhians yourselves, walking on the path that the Mahatma showed us and making meaningful contributions to the cause of Ahimsa and Satya and Shanti. Your belief and your perseverance are remarkable. Communities need such messengers of peace and cooperation now more than ever. more power to your elbow. I hope you will also share my personal conviction that the sun does shine above the dark clouds. Keep the faith. Thank you very much. Namaste. Mahatma Gandhi ki jai. Thank you.
His Excellency Manpreet Vohra ji, who is the High Commissioner here representing India. Thank you so much, sir, for those insightful words. And I do hope there comes a time, like you said, when there is peace, and we possibly might not need Gandhiism for the external, but once again, one of his philosophies, as he says, the physical in man reacts to the psychological. So once we do away with all the physical violence, it's time for us to look inwards and bring the peaceful within. And this has been brought together, or the Peace Symposium, by none other than the founder and CEO of the Saroni Roy Foundation, Ms. Saroni Roy. I'd like to invite her now to share her thoughts and views on why it's so important to have and adopt Gandhian values and philosophies in this day and age today, and what prompted her to bring this symposium together.
Thank you so much, Karthik, for that kind introduction. So hello, global citizens. Welcome to the inaugural Ahimsa Peace Symposium 2021. And what an opening address from His Excellency Manpreet Vohra. Though Mahatma Gandhi is a great hero of history, the Gandhian values of Ahimsa, social action, justice, and peace through non-violence have universal relevance today and inform this Peace Symposium. They perfectly align with Saroni Roy Foundation and SRF Creatists' core principles of diversity, sustainability, and social justice to create a more peaceful, more inclusive one world to live and love, which is essentially Rotary's vision of fostering lasting peace in the world as well. Violence against women and girls has risen globally since lockdowns, which has led to what we see as the shadow pandemic, and thus the focus on the global women, peace and security agenda this year. Amidst the chaos and unprecedented trying times we are living in, it is a call for action to multicultural communities, peace builders, artists, government leaders, advocacy, media, and academia worldwide for global partnerships to create a shared blueprint to achieve a better, peaceful, and more sustainable future for all. APS 2021 is also a celebration of the shared values between Australia and India, and is seen as a prelude to the India at 75 initiative when India completes 75 years of independence. So I thank each of you today for joining us on this journey of peace building. Now, over to our wonderful MC, Karthik Mohandas.
Ladies and gentlemen, as promised, we do have an august line of speakers and also some specialists in the Gandhian philosophy and his values. But now I'd like to introduce someone very special, without whose support this also wouldn't have been possible, is Jeremy Wright AM, who's the district governor for Rotary's district, which also happens to be our favorite district, 9675 Strathfield. I'd like to call upon Jeremy Wright AM.
Thank you, Karthik. And it is a huge privilege to address this symposium. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional lands, the Wongal land of the Eora Nation that I'm on at the moment, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And I know Mahatma Gandhi would be a great supporter of our First Nations people. I'd like to acknowledge our special guests, especially His Excellency Manpreet Vohra, to our federal and state parliamentary members, and to Councillor Rona Jethri, and to especially the director of the foundation, Saroni Roy, for this initiative. Congratulations. And to the Consul General of India, the Honourable Manish Gupta, to my colleague Dr. Janice Hall, to Dr. Sunam Kuna, and to Patricia Garcia, AO. And I'd like to add my thanks to you all for being part of the symposium, all our guests and fellow Rotarians. For my part, I'm very happy to speak on behalf of Rotary International to say that peace is in our DNA. We are champions of this cause. And we were at the table 76 years ago at the formation of the United Nations. We've also more recently, over the past 10 years, fostered Rotary Peace Scholars who promote the ideals of peace around the world and work towards conflict resolution. We also have peace building clubs in this district and around the world, taking positive action in local and overseas communities, promoting peace, tolerance, and understanding between ethnic, religious, and political groups who would otherwise not work together. And I'm happy to say that our international president this year, Sheikha Mehta, who comes from India, was speaking at a conference just a day and a half ago, appealing for support for the case of international nuclear disarmament. And it is a case that Rotarians feel passionate about and obviously is uniquely linked with peace. And in so many of our community and humanitarian programs worldwide, Rotary is endeavouring to address disadvantage and resolve conflict. So you can see Rotary is truly a champion of peace, and we are fully supportive of all that can be done to achieve this goal. I look forward to the many presentations to follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was Jeremy Wright, AM District Governor for Rotary District 9675. And now I'd like to introduce the Honorable Fiona Martin, MP, who's a federal member for Reid, to come and say a few words. She is the guest of honor, and she's also an honorary member of Strathfield Rotary Club.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Look, I'd just like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners on the land on which, well, I'm on, and also to acknowledge all First Nations people across Australia and their connection to land, sea and community. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that are here. Of course, first the High Commissioner. Hello, lovely to see you again. And also to State Member for Strathfield, Jodie Mackay, and to my colleague in the Federal Parliament, Julian Lisa, who I believe is on the call also. I'm honoured to be speaking today at the inaugural Ahimsa Peace Symposium, and I thank Rotary Strathfield for creating an opportunity for an important new fixture on our community calendar. We pay tribute to an extraordinary human being whose legacy transcends his home country, his culture and his time. Mahatma Gandhi is not only an icon of India, but an icon of his ideals. That his birthday should be marked as the United Nations International Day of Non-Violence is a fitting acknowledgement of his contribution to humanity. On this occasion of his birthday, I want to reflect on two immense gifts he has given all of us. His body of philosophy, which has inspired people all over the world, and his application of that philosophy, which has given us the world's largest democracy. His philosophy of non-violence, both as a means of achieving a moral and political goal and as an approach to how we interact with all living things, is now part of our common body of thought. His championing of civil rights, the rights of women and freedom of the individual resonate with the values of democracies around the world. His deep and unflinching humanity and empathy for human beings, irrespective of their cultural trappings, make him an advocate of diversity and inclusion long before those terms were applied today. But it was his practice and application of these ideals that made the difference. His deeds, simple yet profound, both created change and inspired others to participate in that change. To reference a popular quote of his, "We but mirror the world, or the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found in the world of our body. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him." I have always found this work inspiring and empowering, looking inward at ourselves to understand what holds us back so that we can look at the world through clearer, more enlightened eyes. I believe this insight applies not only to the individual, but to a culture as a whole. Only through self-understanding can we better understand others, and in doing so, live alongside each other in harmony and in peace. My electorate of Reid is home to a broad range of cultures, and in many ways, it's a microcosm of Australia as a whole. And as I travel through its suburbs or visit businesses or community organisations and people, I see the fruits of this wisdom on display. But also, I understand that this wisdom is one that deserves to be constantly fostered. The modern nation that Gandhi helped to create is not only the largest, but one of the most successful democracies, with much to teach the region. And while cricket is an unavoidable common passion to our two countries, Australia and India share far more. As our 7th largest trading partner and 6th largest export market, our economic friendship is very strong. But beyond trade, around 1 in 35 Australians were born in India, and the Indian diaspora in Australia is our fastest growing. So our two countries go closer and closer, and our common interests further explored. It behoves us to learn and grow together. And events like this symposium are an opportunity to foster that understanding and grow our collective knowledge of each other's cultures. Over 8,500 people born in India call my electorate of Reid home, and they form a vibrant part of the rich cultural fabric of my area. Each year, as our community celebrates Indian Republic Day and Indian Independence Day and the wonderful Festival of Lights and the Lord Krishna Chariot Festival, to name but a few events, I reflect on the collective benefit that comes from experiencing other cultures in a deeper way. Australia's multicultural nature has been key to its success as a country, but key to its multicultural nature has been our openness to experience, understand, absorb, and celebrate different ways of being from different parts of the world. Such an enterprise is seldom a smooth process, but ours has been made possible in no small part through the kind of small self-examination and commitment to wider human ideals espoused and demonstrated so eloquently and gracefully by the person whose birthday we celebrate today. Thank you very much. Dayavan, thank you.
Thank you so much for those words, Honourable Fiona Martin, MP. And I'd like to take a sentence from something that you said, which is about deepening ties between Australia and India. And given the current state in the Asia Pacific, we become very key members of this alliance that's being formed that we see on the geopolitical platform. Having said that, I still hope and pray that our biggest export is not going to be cricket, it's not going to be software, but it's actually going to be Gandhian values and principles that change the world and make it a better place for all of us to live in. And someone who understands these conflicts really very well is none other than the Honourable Jodie McKay, MP, who's also the state member for Strathfield. She also happens to be, no guesses, honorary member for Strathfield Rotary Club. And my favorite district, once again, please don't forget the number, 9675. So I'd like to invite Honourable Jodie McKay to come and share some thoughts and a few words with us.
Thank you very much, Kartik, and we will not forget that Rotary Club number. I too want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, and I pay my respects to elders past, present, and of course emerging. And I acknowledge my parliamentary colleagues, Julia Finn and Fiona Martin, who are on the call. I want to start by thanking the High Commissioner for taking time this afternoon. This is such a busy day for you, and thank you for giving us your time to talk to us about Gandhiji and why it's important for our Indian Australian community. I also just want to thank you for the work that you are doing to pursue a free trade agreement between Australia and India. It's been a long time in coming, and I know that you are such an important person in those discussions. Can I acknowledge also the Consul General, my dear friend, the Consul General, who's doing such a terrific job. Many of you may not know that this is obviously the 75th anniversary of Indian independence, but it's the 80th anniversary of the Sydney Consulate. Quite extraordinary that it was established before Indian independence here in Sydney. So we have much to celebrate. Look, I wanted just to touch base with all of you on why I think this is important. That is not just Gandhiji's birthday and the values which we've heard so wonderfully espoused, but also its correlation with Rotary. And Kartik, I think you mentioned this, that, you know, we have Rotary International, and particularly here in Strathfield, in our wonderful multicultural community that embraces diversity and inclusion, that celebrates the wonderful diversity that makes our community so much stronger. Rotary, this is a wonderful event, and you are demonstrating that in every way. And you are tying us and you as a movement to the wonderful values of Gandhiji, those values that we've heard about, that is about action through non-violence, through peace, through tolerance, through inclusion, but also empathy and understanding. When I say to people, what do you know of India? They talk about the Taj Mahal, but they talk about Gandhiji. Now, how amazing is it that those values that I've just gone through are attached to a country like India, a wonderful, vibrant democracy. I would love it if those values were attached to Australia as well. But there is some way for us to go, obviously, for us to become a republic and us to be able to celebrate our independence. So in this 75th year, I also acknowledge today as Gandhiji's birthday, and all our Indian Australians, the contribution you make. If all of you, or if some of you know very little about Gandhiji, I encourage you to look at the story of the Salt March of the 1930s. Over 24 days, Gandhiji rallied the whole of India, and he needed a purpose, a rallying point, but how to send a message to the British Raj. And he did that with salt. He did that with salt, and he marched for 24 days, and it was an incredibly powerful example of what you can do through non-violence, through peace, through sending a message that is about tolerance and understanding and inclusivity. So I encourage you to research the Salt March. But thank you so much for hosting this Strathfield Rotary. I'm so proud to be associated with your club. And again, I acknowledge the presence of the High Commissioner and the Consul General, and say how pleased I am to be here as a strong supporter, not just of Strathfield, but our Indian Australian community. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Honourable Jodie McKay, MP and member for Strathfield. And of course, we also thank you for those energetic words and for inspiring us as well with those words. Means a lot. We'll have much more to hear from some of the panel experts and experts on Gandhian philosophy and values coming up very shortly, so stay tuned. But now I'd like to introduce the Honourable Julia Finn, MP, who is the State Member for Granville, and she also is the Shadow Minister for Sport and Shadow Minister for Youth.
Thank you so much, Kartik, and thank you so much for to the Rotary Club of Strathfield and to the Saroni Roy Foundation for organising this afternoon's gathering. It's really important for so many of us to commemorate, of course, the anniversary, the 152nd anniversary of Gandhiji's birth, and it is so fitting that that is also commemorated as the International Day of Non-Violence. To do so this year in the 75th anniversary of India's independence, given that he's the father of the nation, is of course especially important and significant. Now, I come to you on from the lands of the Darug people, the Barramadigal clan of the Darug people, and I understand, of course, we are all gathered not just here in Sydney, but all around the world, and reflecting upon Gandhiji's teachings and what he has given the world, and given India in particular, but given all of us in terms of important lessons. I'd of course like to acknowledge my parliamentary colleagues, Jodie McKay and Fiona Martin, acknowledging of course the Consul General and the High Commissioner of India. It's wonderful to have you here as well, Councillor Reena Jetty, and of course all the Rotarians who are here today. There is so much that is similar in the attributes of Rotary and the ideals of Rotary that are very similar to those things that Gandhiji fought for so long ago. And I think we of course often hear quotes from Gandhi, but the one I think that is most relevant to Rotarians is that the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And Rotary's motto is service above self. So there is so much in common between Gandhiji's teachings and the way that Rotary operates. I'm an honorary member of the Rotary Club of Granville, which is also part of the same district as the Rotary Club of Strathfield. And I know my very good friend Rangarajan is here this afternoon as well. And it's really wonderful to have just so many Rotarians reflecting upon the teachings of Gandhi and reflecting upon our shared values. I also represent an electorate with a very large population from India. There's about 9,000 people born in India who live in my electorate, and it's an absolute pleasure to represent such a large Indian community. And there is so much that we share, and so much of that we as Australians can also learn from Gandhiji's teachings and those values around non-violence that are incredibly important. Over the last few months, we've been, of course, in a very strict lockdown, and we've felt in Sydney very much like Sydney was divided in two halves between those areas that had harder restrictions than the rest of the city. It's actually been quite difficult, and you've seen that as a Member of Parliament, talking to people constantly, feeling like they didn't have the same rights and entitlements as people in other parts of the city. I'm glad that we now have the same rules, but some people think that people in other parts of Sydney aren't subject to the same rules because they see them gathering on Bondi Beach and not wearing masks even when they should be wearing them. We have work to do in peace building as we recover from the pandemic. It's not just about an economic recovery or making sure our hospital systems aren't overwhelmed. We actually have to do work to build peace and to strengthen our communities coming out of the pandemic and coming out of what's already been 4 months and of lockdown, and it'll be closer to 5 months probably by the time that we are fully out of lockdown. You know, non-violence isn't just the absence of conflict. Peace isn't just the absence of conflict. It's something that you need to work towards. And Gandhiji understood that very well. Not only did he achieve independence through non-violence, which is, you know, very rare and an incredible legacy that has set India up to be a country where democracy has thrived for such a long time, even when there has been conflict. It has never torn the country apart. After those first initial years, after India's been established, it has been such a strong uniting principle. And it is important for us to all reflect on around the world. We can't just sit back and take things for granted. We do actually need to constantly work to bring communities together, to hear grievances and to work through grievances. It's an important role as a Member of Parliament, but it's an important role for worldwide organisations like Rotary, one that tries to foster service, tries to foster community, and has very important shared values all around the world. So I really do thank you all for organising this once again. I think it's very, very fitting for the Rotary Club, as well as the Saroni Roy Foundation, but particularly for Rotary to be celebrating the International Day of Nonviolence and Gandhi's birthday, because those values are so intrinsic to the way Rotary operates as an international fellowship and an international service-driven organisation. So I thank you for having me this afternoon, and I thank you for this wonderful initiative, and I also look forward to being part of it every year.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honourable Julia Finn, for those heartfelt words, and they strike a chord with all of us. And that's because while violence can bring about swift ends and conclusions, they act like thunderstorms. You know, they come, they give you the rain, they destroy. But maintaining peace and making sure that it's there, it's glacial in process. It's like a glacier that makes rivers and feeds people and builds civilization. And that's the reason why it's important, while the progress might be slow, but peace brings about long-lasting change and one that intertwines all our lives together in this place that we call our community. Ladies and gentlemen, we have more specialists who will be speaking with us, but now I'd like to introduce Honorable Julian Lesser, MP, Federal Member for Berara, Chair of the Parliamentary Friends of India. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be with us live, but he did send us a video message, which we will play out for you now.
Namaste. आज मैं हिंदी में बोलने का प्रयास करूंगा। मैं सरोनी रॉय फाउंडेशन और SRF Creatists को धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ। मेरा नाम जूलियन लीसर है। मैं बरारा लोकसभा क्षेत्र का सांसद हूँ। मैं Parliamentary Friends of India का अध्यक्ष भी हूँ। आज यहाँ आना मेरे लिए सम्मान और खुशी का विषय है। Hello. My name's Julian Leeser and I'm the Federal Member for Berara. I'm also the Chair of the Parliamentary Friends of India, and can I say it's an honour and a privilege to be with you to participate in the birthday celebrations of one of the most extraordinary people in history. I'd like to welcome guests from all parts of the world to the Ahimsa Peace Symposium 2021 to commemorate Mahatma Gandhi's 152nd birthday. The Saroni Roy Foundation and SRF Creatists have done an incredible job to put on this event at a time when the world is facing the ongoing challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mohandas K. Gandhi was born on the 2nd of October 1869 in Porbandar, India. He became one of the most respected spiritual and political leaders of the 20th century. Gandhiji led India towards independence through non-violent resistance and is honoured as the father of the Indian nation. He was given the moniker Mahatma, meaning great soul. Mahatma Gandhi is also widely considered to be the founder of the modern non-violence movement. He spread this important concept of ahimsa throughout his movement and writings and inspired other non-violent activists. Gandhiji believed in inclusive leadership and dispute settlement and would certainly have opposed a might is right approach to foreign policy. That's the same philosophy that India and Australia both take with us into our Indo-Pacific region, where we work together to ensure we have a region that is open, free, inclusive, prosperous and resilient to coercion. India and Australia share a long and important history. Our ties go back before India's independence and before Australian Federation, when trade commenced between India and the colony of New South Wales. Indians volunteered and fought in the Australian Imperial Force in World War I, something I'm really proud to commemorate with a cenotaph at Cherrybrook in my electorate. Australians and Indians fought together, of course, in their respective armies at Gallipoli. These ties, forged over a century ago, have grown and deepened. You know, it's extraordinary that in the midst of a pandemic, Prime Minister Morrison met with Prime Minister Modi in a historic summit to upgrade our bilateral relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. I think Prime Minister Morrison was uniquely placed to take the relationship to the next level because of the deep friendship he's built with Prime Minister Modi. Last week, my colleagues, the Foreign Minister Maurice Payne and the Defence Minister Peter Dutton, met with our Indian counterparts in Delhi. And earlier this week, Prime Minister Morrison met with Prime Minister Modi in the very first in-person Quad Leaders Summit. That is a momentous occasion in Australia-India relations. Our relationship is going from strength to strength. Together, we're stepping up for oceans. We both have Indian Ocean coasts, and through initiatives like India's Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative and our Pacific Step Up, we're leading on scientific research and environmental protection for our oceans, so important to the future of the planet. Over the last 20 years, the number of Indians in Australia has grown from around 60,000 to more than 700,000 a day. In the next decade, the Indian-born community is projected to overtake the Chinese-born community as the largest migrant community in Australia, reaching 1.4 million people. And as I always say, adik ki karna katahun, I wish I had more. As the chair of the Parliamentary Friends of India, I welcome and celebrate the unique contribution made by the Indian-Australian community and look forward to further strengthening the bilateral ties between Australia and India in India's 75th year. Again, I'd like to congratulate the Saroni Roy Foundation and SRF Creatists for the inaugural Ahimsa Peace Symposium 2021 initiative. I want to leave you with a quote from Gandhiji today. He said, "Non-violence is the greatest force at the disposal of mankind. It is mightier than the mightiest weapon of destruction devised by the ingenuity of man." Dhanyavad.
And what a man he was, ladies and gentlemen. Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, origins out of Gujarat, became a lawyer in South Africa, and then came back to free a nation, and then was given the ubiquitous title of Father of the Nation. What a title to live up to. He must have touched more than 1 billion hearts. And now we have another person working tirelessly in the Hills District for the Indian community and the larger community in the Hills as well. I'd like to introduce Councillor Reena Jethhi of the Hillshire Council, who will come and share a few words with us.
Namaskar. Thank you, Saroni. Thank you, the Rotary Club Strathfield, for having me today. And thank you to all of you for making this event such a huge success. I would like to acknowledge all the guests, all the distinguished speakers, and pay my regards and acknowledgement and homage to the day, a valuable day in the life of mankind. I personally feel Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, with love known as Bapu, and Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation, this all does not come just for granted. It comes out of love, passion, which is reciprocated equally by the community at large. Not just the Indians, but also the global community, global residential shape, and also the people who did not know India. I think Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi put India on the global map of peace as an ambassador of equality. Gandhiji maintained that education is essential for the attainment of the goal of peace. Now, I feel strongly about it because as a high school teacher and an educationist myself, I personally want to feel that that piece of global awareness through education is the most important part to be imparted to the world at large. It is the only way that an attainment could be achieved of moral and ethical values. According to Gandhiji, education is the realization of the best person in body, soul, and spirit. Let the best man get the job. And by today, we all know how important it is for the success of any state or country. It is not about who the person is, but it is about the capability of the person. And Gandhiji was a huge advocate of that. Gandhiji did not hesitate in saying that education should not be a prerogative of any particular caste or religion. It should be equally dispensed to each and every individual wanting to achieve success in their life. It would pave the path to success, stronger, resilient, and enlightened community, state, and the country. Education was the only way, and it even today is the one to create the awareness leading to mankind's equality and forgiveness to each other. Let's just look around today, what we are going through. COVID has brought the whole mankind to a standstill. If only we look back, if only we see how it connects to the beautiful values that were imparted by Gandhiji, it still stands strong. We all need to be together. We all need to combat today's situation together, and stronger we are when we are taking the right steps in the right direction. And that's exactly what Gandhiji wanted. I personally feel that today the Gandhian values are even more valuable than they were ever in the past. Moving forward, I feel Australia has welcomed the global community as a migrant nation with open arms. We are following his footsteps. We need to make sure we continue doing that. I'm so looking forward to hearing all the speakers and the beautiful words. From me personally, as a high school teacher, I'm a bit biased with the education. I personally feel Gandhiji was the biggest and a huge advocate of education to move forward as a stronger individual, as a stronger economy, as a stronger nation. And here we are, promoting his values again today and standing strong. Thank you for having me today. I look forward to hearing from everyone. My name is Reena Jeti. I'm the councillor from the Hillshire.
Thank you, Reena. And of course, divinity can be found in many ways. That was Gandhiji's belief. You could fast for it. You could practice yoga for it. You could practice ahimsa, non-violence for it. You could also attain it through bhajans. Bhajans are devotional songs that are pulled together to touch your heart and also stir something within your spirit. So before we move ahead with words of wisdom from our panelists, our subject experts, it's time now to get and delve into bhajans and get into music. So I'd like to introduce Saroni for a live virtual concert that's been put together, which includes Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajans, which are devotional songs.
Thank you, Karthik. And another hello to all the global citizens here today. My performance today is a tribute to Mahatma Gandhi and to all creatives and artists creating a peaceful, inclusive world, capturing the essence of SRF Creatists. I'll be presenting a selection of Mahatma Gandhi's favorite songs, showcasing culturally and linguistically diverse artists from India and Australia. Adapting to the COVID-19 restrictions, I remotely worked with these musicians and artists based in India to curate this authentic and exquisite piece of art ensconced in the Gandhian values of ahimsa, courage, determination, solidarity, harmony, and peace. As an actor, singer, dancer, and connoisseur of the arts, I truly believe that art is a platform that showcases and also weaves together diverse cultures. It transcends all barriers and doesn't conform to limitations of language, faith, geography, race, or nationality. If we look at some of the diverse ethnicities that have come together today, many of us have experienced loss, war, and conflict in our homeland. Art and artists are therefore an integral catalyst in uniting people, celebrating our rich cultural heritage and perpetuating a culture of peace and harmony. The first song today is Vaishnav Janto, which was written by poet Narsingh Mehta in the Gujarati language. It's a song which has a deep spiritual impact even after 600 years and will continue to inspire generations to come. So here's Vaishnav Janto. The song talks about humanity, kindness, truthfulness, and how people should live for each other, understand each other's pain, and do good in the world without taking pride in it. Kindness, truth, and non-violence, not just in actions, but also in thoughts and words. Respecting every woman as you would respect your own mother. Practicing equality, tolerance, love, and respect for everyone around the world. This way we can all step in and do our part. वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहे जे पेड़ पर आए जाने रे वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहे जे पेड़ पर आए जाने रे पर दुखे उपकार करे तो ये पर दुखे उपकार करे तो ये मन अभिमान ना आने रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहे जे, पेड़ पराई जाने रे। सकल लोक मां सहने वंदे, निंदा न करे के रे। सकल लोक मां सहने वंदे, निंदा न करे के रे। वाच काच मन निश्चल राखे, धन धन जननी तेने रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहे जे, पेड़ पराई जाने रे। तेने कृष्णा त्यागे, पर स्त्री जेने मात रे। समदृष्टि ने कृष्णा त्यागे, पर स्त्री जेने मात रे। जीवा थकी असत्य न बोले, पर धन नव झले हाथ रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहे जे, पेड़ पराई जाने रे। The next one is in Hindi. Raghupati Raghav Rajaram, also known as Ramdin, was sung by Mahatma Gandhi and his followers as they walked the 241-mile Salt March to Dandi. It signifies strengthening of interfaith and interreligious solidarity. Raghupati Raghav Raja Ram Patit Pavan Sitaram, ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरो नाम, सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। रघुपति राघव राजा राम, पतित पावन सीताराम। ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरा नाम, सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। रघुपति राघव राजा राम, पतित पावन सीताराम। Now the next one is in Bengali or Bangla language. Written by Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore, the song encourages us to continue to work on our mission and vision despite abandonment or lack of support from others, leading social change. This is Akla Charuri. যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi were great friends who seldom disagreed on issues concerning India. They exchanged several letters in which they expressed agreements and disagreements, often undercutting each other. যদি কেউ কথা না কয় ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা কেউ কথা না কয় যদি সবাই থাকে মুখ ফিরায় সবাই করে ভয় যদি সবাই থাকে মুখ ফিরায় সবাই করে ভয় তবে পরাণ খুলে তুই মুখ ফুটে তোর মনের কথা একলা বলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Saroni, and for allowing us a little bit of a breather, and also that was beautiful. It encapsulates a lot of the values that Gandhiji proposed. And for those of you who like the melody, but do not know the song, I'm sure Saroni will be kind enough to put the titles out there in the chat towards the end so that you can go YouTube it, Google it, and find out what it really means. Moving on now and getting into the heavy stuff, we have a heavy hitter coming up to speak next. And as it was mentioned, it also happens to be a very special day because it's also the anniversary of the Sydney Consulate. So none other than the Honorable Mr. Manish Gupta, who's the Consul General of India here in Sydney. I'd like to invite him and speak on the event of Gandhi Jayanti and talk about India-Australia bilateral relationships at 75 years after independence.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Karthik. At the outset, Saroni, I would like to really compliment you for such a melodious rendition of Mahatma's favorite songs that really touched my heart. I remember we had this discussion for organizing the Ahimsa Peace Symposium, and really I am thankful to you, your foundation, and the Rotary Club of Strathfield that this event has finally been put into shape. And the way you have done it really fully portrays, how deeply you have crafted the entire event. We are truly honored Honorable High Commissioner has joined us today. And of course, Honorable Federal MPs, Fiona Martin, Julian Leeser, Honorable State MPs, Georgie McKay, Julia Finn, Councillor Rena Chatterjee, and host of other dignitaries who are joining us today. This just reflects, your shared love for India and our bilateral ties, and that means a lot to us. Of course, today is Gandhi's Jayanti, birth anniversary of Father of the Nation, and we celebrate globally this as the International Day of Nonviolence. For us, this year is a major milestone in India's national journey as we celebrate India's 75th years of independence this year. It is a year of celebrations of the hopes and aspirations of over 1.3 billion Indians, our friends all around the world, and our vast Indian diaspora, which has a footprint all around the world. For us, it's also a time to remember our rich heritage and our achievements, and also a befitting time to remember the contributions and sacrifices of those noble souls. India attained its freedom from colonial rule under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi through two very unique instruments, as if everybody has referred to truth and non-violence. India's independence became inspiration for emerging countries in Asia and Africa who were also emerging from the colonial yoke at that point of time. But the most important difference for Gandhiji was this: the freedom was not about simple political emancipation. It was about social and economic emancipation of the masses as well. He worked hard to remove social rigidities and improve the status of women in Indian society. No wonder Indian women were at the forefront of the freedom movement. In him, there was a person who practiced what he preached. His life was his message. His entire life embodies the importance of ethics, values, tolerance, and compassion in our daily lives. He was born in India, but he belonged to the humanity. As Honorable High Commissioner referred to Martin Luther King, that speaks highly about the sense that he belonged to the humanity. He was a great visionary and humanist to the core. Our ties, as you all know, predate our independence and have very rich history. This year, we have started looking into our historical linkages also. And I was quite pleasantly surprised. Our ties go back as early as 1788, when the trade of New South Wales was administered through the Kolkata port. India and Australia, we have fought on the same side during the World War I in the Gallipoli trenches. In Southeast Asia theater, the World War II, we are again on the same side. Going beyond democracies and of course, cricket, Commonwealth and curry, they always continue to define us. We always say, and even as we speak, I think we have a wonderful test match going on in Queensland between our women teams. But I think our partnership is much more. It's a natural partnership based on our shared values and interests. We are societies that promote and nurture knowledge and innovation and respect diversity. That's the essence of a partnership, and our vibrant diaspora is playing a big role in strengthening the people-to-people contacts. A bright future for our ties beckons us. But today, when we talk about the challenges related to environment, sustainable development, women, status of women, gender violence, some of these, have a global dimension. As Honorable High Commissioner said, Gandhiji was a great visionary. His novel thoughts on some of these issues are timeless, universal. He practiced a very simple way of life. One of his quotes is a very profound one when he talks about the environment, Earth provides enough to satisfy everyone's need, but not for every man's greed. Such a profound statement. As humanity emerges from the pandemic now, it is time for us to self-reflect and introspect on our way of life. Perhaps Gandhian values and thoughts would offer us comfort and a vision for the future. I wish everybody today all the very best on this occasion. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Ian. That was our Honorable Counsel General in Sydney, Mr. Manish Gupta. Thank you so much for those words. I'd now like to introduce Dr. Janice Hall, who's the District Governor-elect for Rotary District 9675. Please don't forget that, Strathfield, my favorite number. And she's going to be talking on empowering women and girls.
Thank you. Today, over 84 million people are displaced as a result of conflict, violence, persecution, and human rights violations. That means 1 in every 95 people on Earth have fled their home as a result of conflict or persecution, and half of them are women and children. Distinguished guests, and there are many of you, and I honor you, fellow Rotarians, and my new global friends. Thank you for inviting me today to this very auspicious Peace Symposium and granting me time to discuss some issues with you that are very dear to my heart, and as I am hearing, very dear to the hearts of all of you. And Saroni, may I thank you for your music. It lightened our hearts, and thank you so much for that. It was a beautiful rendition of song. Peace, as we know it, is not just a state somewhere on our planet or period in time in which there is no war, or where there is the absence of personal and direct violence. Peace today is defined by the attitudes, the institutions, and the structures that create and sustain peaceful societies. These same factors also lead to thriving economies, better performance on sustainability measures, and improved education and schooling, especially for girls. Did you know that children account for 30% of the world's population, but children make up 42% of all forcibly displaced people? And the result of this displacement goes far beyond people without permanent homes or shelter. To simply survive, families are turning to the unthinkable by allowing or condoning child marriage. Women are taking on jobs in other countries and risk being trafficked with little or no rights. Girls are not able to continue their education as they move away from school or because it is too dangerous to travel. Yes, gains have been made, but the inequality of expectations of results for men and women still remain, and girls and women still experience violence and poverty at higher rates than men. I am a very proud Rotarian, and while currently the District Governor-elect of Rotary District 9675 in Sydney, Australia, that district again, yes, I also have another role to play this year. Our District Governor, Jeremy Wright, appointed me as an ambassador for empowering women and girls. And this is in direct response to the call to action from our Rotary International President, Sheikha Mehta, whose passion is to empower girls, particularly in countries where the rights of women and girls are not clearly acknowledged and where war and violence frighten families and women and children every day. And that is foreign to some of us. Empowering girls means not only supporting them to ensure that their basic needs are met, but we must work to transform the structures and institutions that reinforce and perpetuate gender discrimination and inequality. This is a call to action to support strategies that nurture girls developing self-confidence and empower them to make their voices heard and realize their full potential. This is a call to action to support women and girls, irrespective of beliefs, culture, or historical prejudices. As Gandhi himself says, you may never know what results come of your actions, but if you do nothing, there will be no results. As a humanitarian organization, peace is a cornerstone of Rotary's mission. Rotary deliberately and systematically has created environments where peace can be cultured and supported to thrive. In accomplishing this objective, Rotary has established 7 areas of focus, but I'm going to briefly refer to 2: basic education literacy and peace and conflict prevention and resolution. Now, I am aware that peace is our highest agenda item here today at this conference, but my life experience as an educator and as a Rotarian has clearly demonstrated to me that educating women and girls is a most successful long-term goal, and the research proves that it does bring about lesser conflict and more positive and sustainable outcomes. I'll refer to Gandhi himself again. If we are to teach real peace, and if we are to carry on a real war against war, we shall have to begin with the children. But here today we are approaching the concept of peace with greater cohesion and inclusivity, broadening the scope of what we mean by peace building and finding more ways for more people to become more involved and assist more women and more girls. And in my role as ambassador for empowering women and girls, I intend to explore that as widely and as deeply as I possibly can. I mentioned before that I am an educator, teaching in different schools in different countries, in different universities. And I have witnessed firsthand how education can change people. I have taught in difficult and challenging areas where it was a constant battle to keep students even attending, let alone engage in learning. But when the magic happened and the learner engaged and saw the light around the words or the numbers or the concepts or the ideas, a miracle occurred. And that student started on a very different path, a more positive path, a more successful path to becoming a more forceful and more innovative learner and leader in their own community. That is a legacy of peace building, of which I am particularly proud. And that is a legacy that we should leave for many more women and girls. The Chellai Betai report to UNESCO reiterates this, and Councillor Rena Jeffer would support this. Educate a man and you educate an individual. Educate a woman and you educate a family. Gandhi also says, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And the Honourable Julia Finn already mentioned that. Now, I am sure that these words of Gandhi influenced our international president, Sheikh Mehta, who chose for our Rotary International theme this year, serve to change lives. So, how can we serve to change the lives of women and girls? Sheikh Mehta has outlined his expectations. He wishes for us to support women and girls through projects that protect, empower, and create equity for them in as many fields as possible. Let us focus on a few practical ideas. We can plan Rotary Days of Service that highlight or focus on the empowerment of women in business, politics, education in our local community. We can plan a peace walk where women and girls from many diverse backgrounds can meet and become allies for each other. We can hold a peace circle where young women can meet in a safe and secure environment and learn to be leaders. We can have conversations that teach women and girls how to stand up to acts of discrimination and hatred, both offline and online. We can share stories of successful women who have overcome adversity and now help others. Because as Eleanor Roosevelt pointed out, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. We can support projects that educate women about how to protect other young women from being trafficked. Education can alleviate much of this. We can promote rehabilitative service programs for victims of domestic violence. We can support women to return with dignity, or better still, teach them how to prevent it. We can advocate for refugee programs aimed at women and girls. Just consider the thousands of well-educated and professional women recently displaced in Afghanistan. We can collate and publish stories from our club or from our area on how COVID-19 has affected women and girls and how we have supported them and how we value and celebrate their successes. And remember Emma Watson's advice of the Harry Potter fame, girls should never be afraid to be smart. Wayne Dyer once said, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. So as a result of our working together here today, we can now look differently at our understanding of peace, thanks to the wise words and practices of Mahatma Gandhi. If we look from the viewpoint of women and girls, we will look differently at addressing the underlying causes of conflict, such as poverty, discrimination, ethnic tension, lack of access to education, and unequal distribution of resources. We will look differently at ensuring that girls and women reach their full potential. Rotary's commitment to peace building today addresses these new challenges. and delineates how together we can make the greatest possible impact. In conclusion, let me paraphrase the Rotary vision statement. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting peace across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Janice Hall, for those insightful words and also for leaving us with that thought. They say if a picture can paint 1,000 words, you've done it with just one word, peace. Thank you for that. And it is a Saturday today and the 2nd of October. So on the beautiful thoughts left by Dr. Janice Hall, I would also recommend a very good documentary called Daughters of Destiny on Netflix. You should watch that. It brings a tear to your eye, and it also is quite inspiring. But it's time to be inspired even more. And I'd like to call upon Dr. Suman Khanna Agarwal, who's a former professor at Delhi University, founder and president of Shanti Sahyog, which is a Gandhian NGO. And she's traveled the world extensively, talking about the principles of Gandhianism and how they're still relevant today. So without further ado, Dr. Suman Khanna.
Thank you, Karthik. And I'd like to begin by thanking the organizers and especially Saroni Roy for giving me this opportunity of having a sharing with you, a dialogue with you, and bringing Gandhi to you. And my task has been made much easier. I thank Janice Hall I take a cue from her because she says she wants to present a call for action. So that's what I'm going to do, because a lot of speakers before me have said that the greatness of Gandhi was, or is, that he applied non-violence in all walks of life, even in politics. So taking my cue from Janice and also what she just said about, let's look at the world differently. So I'm going to now, in the few minutes allotted to me, I'm going to make you look at the world differently. And also another thing, Janice, what you said, let us all come together and work for peace. So I'm going to present a small plan for action. Can I share my screen with you to begin, please, Karthik? Yeah?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just sharing my screen. Yeah, can you see my screen, everybody? Hello?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yeah, and I guess you can hear me too. So very quickly, I'm going to present you a plan for action, which I entitled Nonviolent Defense, but I'll just tell you how we get there. This is the next slide is just about our, Karthik just said, it's a Gandhian NGO, and we have started a Center for Nonviolence in 2018, which is a unit of Shanti Sahyog. Shanti Sahyog is dedicated to truth, nonviolence, and service. Those are the values Gandhi stood for. And we take a cue from poverty is the worst form of violence, what Gandhi says. And another thing he said was, an ounce of practice is better than a ton of theory. So I'm just going to give you an ounce of practice and let's see what we can do. This is our vision for Shanti Sahyog, a just world free of poverty and violence. Our mission is to help individuals and communities break poverty that prevents them from reaching their potential. And of course, our inspiration is Mahatma Gandhi, and of course, that how an ounce of practice is better than a ton of theory. Then this, of course, is our Shanti Sahyog Center for Nonviolence, which is in alignment with SDG 16, Peace, Justice, and Strong Institutions. And those are all the things we do to bring about peace. I won't dwell into that. Anybody interested can go into it later, as I'll be sharing this PPT with you. So this is where I want to begin. What is not known about Gandhi is that Gandhi, if you read Gandhi, if you study Gandhi like I have, I've done 3 postdoctoral research projects on Gandhi after my PhD, and also teach Gandhian philosophy in foreign universities, regular graded courses. So if you read Gandhi, you will find that he keeps on talking about non-violence as a science. and not as a sentiment or emotion or feeling. It's not something goody-goody, you feel something and then you do non-violence. No, it is a science. The science of non-violence, the science of Satyagraha. In fact, my latest book on Gandhi is called The Science of Peace, which I've written for the younger generation, where I do not talk about the historical Gandhi, but all about his concepts. What is truth? What is non-violence? What is power? What is non-violent resistance? So coming back to my point, so a science has 4 characteristics, any science, social science, medical science, computer science, physical science. It's a systematic body of knowledge with its own laws and principles. Number 2, it has to be learned. And that is why Janice Hall talks about education. If you could know everything about, sociology or whatever, sitting at home, you wouldn't go to school. So non-violence also has to be learned. And I think today, I must say here, can you see the powerlessness of the whole world community? We're just sitting there, we don't know what to do against the Taliban, because all we know is how to drop bombs, how to use violence. We have never learned how to use non-violence. How can we apply it? So it has to be learned. Number 3, a successful application of non-violence or any science depends on an adequate study of it. And lastly, science solves problems. That's another characteristic of a science. So having said that, let me move on. Science solves problems. This is what I'm going to show you, because how to solve the problem of war, Taliban, poverty, how to move forward. For instance, the science of physics, as you know, has solved the problem of darkness through the discovery of electricity. Since non-violence is a science, let's illustrate how it too can solve problems. My next slide says that. Okay. Now, how do we get there? We always apply the scientific methods. Remember, we read all this in school. You always have to find the first cause of any phenomena to be really able to cure it. So what is the scientific method? You formulate a hypothesis, check it out, discard it if it's false, formulate another hypothesis, check it out, discard, and so on and on until the first cause of the phenomena is located, and then you find a remedy for it. For instance, medical science established that the first cause of malaria fever and then found how to cure it. And let me just graphically put this here. Yeah, so applying the scientific method to find the first cause of malaria. Well, you have malaria. Well, the hypothesis was, to begin with, it's lack of vitamins. Which vitamins? Maybe A, B, C, D, E. And then we found that no, lack of vitamins did not cause malaria. So then lack of safe drinking water. Then again, no. Then malnutrition, no. And of course, all of you know now, that is the Anopheles mosquito bite, which causes malaria. And so after formulating, checking, eliminating, reformulating hypothesis, we came to the first cause. And today we have a cause. We have a cure for malaria. Now, okay, so now here, the major problem facing humankind today, we all have problems. I could actually take anybody's problem and show you how non-violence can solve it, but I shall restrain myself. This is a major problem facing humankind today, the war system. So the first part is always define, applying the scientific method to find the first cause of war. Well, as we all know, the military-industrial complex, deterrence, extreme nationalism, religious fundamentalism, all that. But the first cause, dear friends, and I would call you visionaries because you all took the time on a Saturday to come and grace the Gandhi Peace Symposium. The first cause is that all the adults living in democracies, we have politically legitimized violent conflict resolution. And by the way, we are very passionate about this legitimization. We are spending only $3.5 million per minute teaching how to use violence to resolve conflict. We are not even spending $1 a minute teaching how to use non-violence to resolve conflict. How can we expect it to succeed? So, so what exactly do we want to change? Meaning of the war system. That is very, very important. Well, very, very briefly, the financial resources spent on war, $3.5 million per minute. It's a lot of money, We have a whole table where using only 25% of the annual global military expenditure, we can solve all the problems facing humankind today. all from global warming, ozone layer depletion, deforestation, clean drinking water, etc., etc. Then human resources spent on war, military R&D. The best minds, how sad, have been researching how to make better nuclear weapons to destroy humankind. How sad. Number 3, accidental nuclear war can happen any minute. I've been lecturing extensively in Japan, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, where I met the Hibakusha, and they told horrifying stories of how they were playing in the schoolyard and this bomb dropped and how they dragged themselves to the river, etc., etc. Then the ecological imbalance. It's so fashionable to work for climate change, and we all should. But what is the major source of the ecological imbalance? It is 2 things. The nuclear weapon testing, the pollution from that, and the waste from military industry that goes into the atmosphere. So this is actually the major cause. And of course, governments love to say, oh, it's transportation, etc. It is. And you have all these wonderful people taking public transport, not using their cars, etc., to save the world. And of course, 18,000 children die every day globally. So I think Janice was talking about these children. They're dying and no education, no nothing for them. So what can we do now? This is just the nutshell of let me take you to my next slide. Okay, so very briefly, I put it here. What are the props of the war system? I cannot explain them, there's no time, but you all know it's the military industrial complex, the logic of deterrence, extreme nationalism, religious fundamentalism. If we are really serious about it, as Rotary has one of the pillars of peace, they should give us a very big research grant for 3 years. Each of these should be tackled separately, and then you find out what to do about it. And the last one on the screen is, of course, this, I repeat it here, where it's, I don't know if you can see it, it's how this is Gandhi's, when he wanted to solve a problem. How come he was a success? What? Because this was what was important for him, for any injustice. How am I supporting the injustice, and how can I change it? So this is Gandhi. So if you want to be Gandhi, this is Gandhi's mantra. If you want to be great like Gandhi, just apply this. So whatever injustice, how can I not, we're always blaming the system, my parents, my upbringing, my environment, my school teacher, my this, that, and the other. But Gandhi never looked to another. That is the greatness of the Mahatma. No wonder he was called Mahatma. So how am I supporting? I'll just tell you how we are and how we can change it. Well, we are supporting it because we the adults living in democracies have politically legitimized violent conflict resolution. We have consciously or unconsciously decided, unfortunately we don't even know about it, that when there will be conflict at the global level, we will use war to resolve it. So that is the political legitimization, and look at the amount we are spending. So Gandhi believes in people's power, as you all know. So we are all people here today, not any government. So what can we all do? What can we do? So here it is. How can people stop supporting war? So world citizens, taxpayers of nation states, let's start a people's movement to politically legitimize non-violent conflict resolution. It's very simple. And how? Through the introduction of non-violent defense in their respective countries. So this I present to you, a Center for Nonviolence Global Initiative, a people's movement for introducing non-violent defense, with the aim being the political legitimization of non-violent conflict resolution. So what do we want? We urge all nation states to implement the following. We means all of you, all of us here, citizens of Australia, Indians, everybody globally, adults living in democracies who have the power to vote. So what are we urging our nation states? To implement the following 3 components in their defense systems. And what is the first one of these? Well, the first one is that without giving up the present military defense, please note, without abandoning or giving up the present military defense, a parallel non-violent defense be introduced everywhere. Here I want to tell you, I am merely a Gandhi expert, but there are non-violent defense experts who have been working on this concept for the past 25 years, quarter of a century. Most of them are friends of mine. One of them lives in Australia, Robert Burrows. He's a friend of mine, and he has a whole strategy of non-violent defense. Please read his books. And he's a real Gandhian, follows Gandhi. So this is the first. And by the way, these three demands, we could say, you may find this very simple, but a lot of work has gone into them. I'm sharing with you the 80th draft. A lot of thinking, everything has gone into this. Okay, so this demand, let me just say one thing. This simply means that you have a defense ministry. It's actually a military ministry, keep it. But every country starts a non-violence ministry, and every country has, military training colleges. West Point in the States, Australia has one too. We have NDIMA. Keep that. Every country starts a non-violence defense academy. Okay, and where we will teach non-violent defense. There's a blueprint of non-violent defense. We only need the political will to put it into practice. So second is the legal democratic option for training in either non-violent defense or present armed military system. We talk about democracies. How democratic are we? If I do not believe, you have to learn how to kill, you have to learn how to go to war, you learn how to use a gun, a machine gun, etc. So you want to learn, fine, but I want to learn how to use non-violence. So let me go and train in non-violent defense. It's only fair and democratic. The last is the third demand. In democracies, you're allowed to demand the legal democratic option for taxpayers to pay tax either for military defense or non-violent defense. So what are we asking? That our income tax returns, all of us have to file them every year in every part of the country, of the world rather. So there should be a box and you can tick mark, military defense or non-violent defense. And visionaries gathered here, imagine if half the taxpayers all over the world signed up, what would happen? The $3.5 million a minute, half of it would be released for non-violent defense. As you all know, funding is a big problem. Ask me, running an NGO, we are totally dependent on donations. The more donations we get, the more people we can help, educate. We have 3, preschools for slum children, etc., etc. Janice, if you come to Delhi, you must come and visit us because we are doing everything near your heart. We have centers, 2 centers for women where we rehabilitate, legal aid and counseling toward domestic violence victims. So you're the person I really invite, everyone also, but you especially. Yeah. Okay, so let's say, because you want to start something new, here is all the money. The money to start your academy, non-violence R&D, military R&D, how much? One nuclear submarine made by United States is billions of dollars, which is equal to the educational budget of 18 developing countries. I have facts to prove this. I cannot do it right now because of paucity of time. Okay, now the next is, how is this, these 3 demands derive their legitimacy from what? Article 18 of the United Nations Convention of Human Rights. Each individual has the right to freedom of conscience. So if my conscience doesn't allow me to kill, why force me? If your conscience allows, go ahead. Nobody's stopping you. And the preamble of the UN Charter, I think you were quoting it here. We, the people of the UN, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. We actually want the UN to take this campaign up. They should be doing it. It's their agenda. But of course, Shanti Sehog Center for Nonviolence has taken it up. And here, let me just add 2 things. There is this beautiful law about violence against children, that you cannot use violence against children. And I believe in the States and in foreign countries, children can actually pick up the phone and call the police. Now I am a professor of philosophy. I urge all of you, there's very little time, but what is the philosophical basis of this law? Well, I would have given you time to think if you were doing a workshop with me, but let me give it to you here on a platter. It is because, you must not use violence against kids. Of course, all that is there, that they will learn violence. One day they will take it out on the spouse or displaced aggression or whatever. But the main, this is so important. So let me give you an example. Let's say one boy, let's call him Rudolph. He's fiddling with the TV. Now, one way out is you slap him and slap him real hard. So till he's 18, he'll be so scared of you. The other is you take the time out of your busy lives, how busy we are. Sit with Rudolph, give him his ice cream or custard. You have to create an environment and then say, look, this is your TV. If you do this, you cannot see Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, etc. So in other words, you can appeal to the understanding of a 3-year-old. You do not have to use violence. So ladies and gentlemen, I ask you, as we grow, does not our understanding increase? I'm sure Janice's understanding has increased since she was 3 years old. So we are so schizophrenic in the world. We must appeal to the understanding of a 3-year-old. But after 18, 30-year-old, 40-year-old, we can kill them. How strange. Why should we not also have to appeal to the understanding of, whoever is in power? And by the way, one more thing here. Do you think that an Australian woman, when she loses her husband, or an Australian child becomes an orphan because of war, feels more pain than an Indian or a Bangladeshi or a Pakistani? No, the pain is the same. What are we celebrating after war? It's vulgar to celebrate victory after war. What are we celebrating? Anyway, so the next is, of course, Satyagraha, as you know, or non-violent resistance, according to Gandhi again, has 2 components, people and symbols. We don't have anything else. So salt was a symbol. And somebody talked about the salt march. As a Gandhian scholar, I have analyzed the salt march. I would love to do a presentation with you, how he chooses the place, the time, the strategy, the means, etc. What is the outcome? All that. There's a whole analysis. We don't know how, so that we can learn how to do it. We don't have an understanding of how to do it. So now there are so many people who are working for peace, including all of you, how to bring them all together. Now, I don't know, because I don't want to do violence to the symposium. Maybe I've run out of time. So there's a whole strategy how to do it. If you give me a few minutes, I can share. Otherwise, let me not do violence. And in any case, I've sent this presentation. If you're willing to join this initiative, please do this. So I don't know, Karthik, am I allowed to go on for 2 minutes more, or should I stop here? I don't know.
Sumanji, I wouldn't want to squeeze out something that you're saying in 2 minutes. It's not worth it. I mean, this is a chalice from which I'd like to drink at peace. And I've already had so many requests from people wanting the presentation that you're giving. So what I'd like to do is get that from you, and we'll have it ready, both from Rotary and the Saroni Roy Foundation, to be circulated to all those who are interested. And by the way, I have a compliment in the chat list that's basically asking you to stand as president of the world as well. And someone here wants to vote for you. So I think we have a few people who wanted to work with Dr. Janice as well. Some people who want to vote for you. But now we must move on to our next speaker. So I'll allow you to conclude, and then we'll move on.
Okay. So all I'm trying to say is that somebody said this, in a gentle way, you can shake the world. There's a very gentle way. All you have is people and strategy. Come on, salt brought down the British Empire. And so can we with all the strategy. I stop here, but it's all there for you. I would love to do another presentation. I would love Australia, headed by Janice Hall, to start this initiative there. And of course, I would love to explain how to go about it. And we are doing it in our own way here. And the strategy is all worked out. Again, a lot of time has gone into it, a lot of time. And I just want to conclude by saying that, I do a lot of workshops on Gandhi around the world since 1987. So I always wanted my workshop participants to come up with, how to solve the war system, and of course they broke up into groups and they really couldn't find a solution. And of course I couldn't go home. So I thought, as a Gandhian scholar, I have to come up with something. What do I? So that is how I came up with this initiative. And of course it was shared, etc. So I end with a quotation from Gandhi where he says, and I'm totally convinced of it, that non-violence can never fail. What fails is an imperfect practice of it. Just as H2O can never equal water, H2O equals water. In the same way, the time has come to learn non-violence, to have kindness and compassion, compassionate communities, to build that. And so therefore, so I invite all of you, Gandhi's autobiography is my experiments with truth. So let us today as humankind come together, let us not pay lip service to Gandhi today. It's a call for action. Let us see that if all of us can unite together and really politically legitimize non-violent conflict resolution. That is Gandhi's legacy, non-violent conflict resolution. So thank you so much, Karthik, and everyone else.
Thank you, Dr. Suman Khanna, for those very moving words. And I can just see how charged you are. Having said that, you stand true to the values and principles that you spoke about, because I can see love blossoming between Dr. Suman and Dr. Janice. But we have another very renowned speaker also coming up next, who I'd like to introduce. And hopefully 3 of you can get together and make the world a little better place to live in for all of us. I'd like to now introduce Patricia Garcia AO, Partnership Development Manager for Institute for Economics and Peace.
Thank you very much, Karthik. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I'd like to first acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which I'm meeting with you this evening, the Camrugai people of the Eora Nation, and to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to also pay my respects to the First Nations people who are present with us this evening. I'd like to just reflect more after hearing the wonderful presentations we've had this evening, to first thank Saroni Foundation and the Rotary Club Strathfield for inviting me to join with you in commemorating the 152nd birthday of Mahatma Gandhi. I'd like to speak more from a very personal account of the influence of Gandhi's teachings and his values during my time working as a humanitarian worker, and how today, how Gandhi's influence with his teachings of non-violence continues, including in the work of the Sustainable Development Goals Agenda, 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, and also a very bold partnership between Rotary and the Institute for Economics and Peace, IEP, to promote peace and foster peace in communities around the world. As a humanitarian worker, I worked from 1988 till 2000 in conflict-affected countries, including Afghanistan, Bosnia, Kosovo, Rwanda, Sudan, South Sudan, and Thai-Burma border. Very difficult countries. And with the work I did, mostly working with refugees and displaced, there was one thing that was very common amongst all the refugees, and that was their desire for peace. So in 2000, I took a break from working in the field, as we say, and I went to work as a human rights fellow with the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies, because I wanted to look at the nexus between peace and humanitarian work and development work. And at the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies, there was a very, very distinctive peace posters gallery that everyone would see as they entered the foyer and the entrance of the center. And on display were these magnificent photographs of the world's peace leaders. And at the centerpiece of that gallery was a photograph of Mahatma Gandhi. And he was surrounded by photographs of the Dalai Lama, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, as well as photos of many of the people's peace movements and movements of nonviolent action, of which many of you would know were heavily influenced by Mahatma Gandhi. Working at that center, it was obviously a very valuable source of inspiration for me, and also for my other academic staff members, and also researchers and students who were working at that center, attending that center, and being in that presence of understanding the values that he brought. I think of also a story. A few years ago, I wanted to learn how to sail, and I was intrigued by a sailing club that I came to meet, and I joined the club because the club was called the Ahimsa Sailing Club. And I asked the members of the sailing club how they came to call their sailing club Ahimsa. And they said to me that they were influenced by Gandhi's concept of non-violence as being the elements of land, water, soil, and air being harnessed to create positive action. And it was through that understanding of non-violence as being the elements of our nature, protecting our nature for positive action, that I ended up joining the sailing club. And I would have to say that they did teach me how to sail. But obviously, on top of that, I gained the values of understanding the practice of Ahimsa. I'd like now to show, in that story, I would like to mention that that message of Ahimsa that they gave to me in the sailing club was the story of Gandhi more than 100 years ago, meeting the world's leaders, where he said that the environment has not been inherited from your forebears, but actually is on loan from the next generation. And for that reason, we must treat the land, the water, the soil, and the air as if it is on loan from the next generation. And so we must take care of it because we will have to pay back with interest to take care of this environment. So I think it's a wonderful interpretation of the concept of non-violence as seen from the values of non-violence connected to the environment. I'd like now to show the influence of how Gandhi's concept of non-violence continues to this day with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I'd like to first just share a very brief video. Many of you would have heard about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. In September 2015, all 193 countries of the world came together to formally adopt and commit to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals with their 169 targets to transform the world and to secure a common future. This is Sustainable Development Goals represents, for me, a roadmap in which we could be able to have a vision to be able to have a peaceful, equal, and sustainable future, with the signposts being the 17 goals with their 169 targets. As many of you saw those 17 goals, these 17 goals represent what I call the 5 Ps. They represent people, they represent peace, they represent the planet, prosperity, and partnership. And what we today are doing around the world is to ensure, to follow and take action, find solutions and collaborate to be able to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, because 2030, for many of you, may seem a long way away, but it's actually less than 3,400 days. It's not a long time to be able to achieve all these 17 goals. And in particular, I'd like to stress that for all of us today, because we are focusing on the concept of peace, the goal of SDG 16, which is the goal of peaceful, inclusive societies with access to justice and strong institutions, is a key goal that Rotary and the Institute for Economics and Peace are working on today. I'd also like to say that the key goal of partnership is the goal that I'd like to talk a little bit more in relation to the Rotary and the IEP partnership to promote peace in communities around the world. Partnership, as you know, is one of the key goals. It's actually SDG 17, Sustainable Development Goals. And when we talk about partnership, we're talking about importance of collaboration, cooperation, and solidarity. And for me particularly, it's important to look at the courageous partnership that we need if we are going to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. This requires us to work with other organizations, sometimes new organizations, who have a bold vision, to be able to have the vision to work and a bold ideas to be able to see that they can be able to develop peace and have the prosperity and to be able to protect the environment. The Sustainable Development Goals is also an agenda that is very familiar with Rotary and Institute for Economics in Peace. And I like to illustrate that connection. The Rotary IEP partnership, we hope to create a partnership surrounding the framework of positive peace. For many of you, as you see the concept of positive peace as something that, positive peace is a concept that IEP defines as the attitudes, institutions, and structures that create and sustain peaceful societies. As many of you know, many of us look at peace as being the absence of violence or the fear of violence. Well, with positive peace, we see this as the area where it's not only looking at the absence of fear of violence, but we also need to look at the social, economic, and environmental factors that create peace. IEP's aim is to shift people's mindsets to look at peace as a positive, tangible, and achievable measure of human well-being and development. And I think this is something that would be very, very clear and understandable through the eyes also of Gandhi's teachings. We also want to show that the partnership between Rotary and IEP is reinforcing Rotary's 7 areas of focus through a positive peace lens, and to also inform Rotary's work in peace and conflict resolution, as well as other areas of focus. We have a strong aim to work on peace education and training, particularly working to empower Rotarians to build on their current expertise, to mobilize communities to undertake peace building projects using a positive peace framework. Sorry. I'll just hurry that one up. I think we're losing a little bit of time here, but I'm hoping to just wrap this up a little bit more. As the IEP Partnerships Development Manager, a lot of my work is developing strategic partnerships with community organizations, with NGOs, with governments, with academics, educational institutions, and the general public. But the special relationship that IEP has with Rotary began 6 years ago with a memorandum of understanding with Rotary International, where we as a research and think tank have been able to deliver peace education and training through what we call the Positive Peace Academy, as well as positive peace workshops, where we are delivering the concept of raising awareness and understanding of the positive peace framework. And the positive peace framework is a set of interrelated factors or pillars we call the 8 pillars of positive peace. I just want to show you here the diagram with the 8 pillars of positive peace, as you can see here in the flower, the center. The 8 pillars of positive peace are the well-functioning government, low levels of corruption, acceptance of the rights of others, free flow of information, sound business environment, high levels of human capital, equitable distribution of resources, good relations with neighbours. And you can see here that these 8 pillars are directly aligned with the 7 areas of focus of Rotary's work and Rotary's programs. And because of this, this is the reason why we have this very special partnership where we are able to, together, using our cooperative power, to work to be able to promote peace and to be able to support peace builders to build peace in their communities around the world. And we have already undertaken several programs where we've been able to do this peace building training in our different regions of North America, Latin America, Europe, and Asia. This is some examples of some of our positive peace workshops around the world in Colombia. And this is another one in Mexico. I'd like to invite you all to please contact us, Rotary and IEP, for those of you who would want to learn more about our Positive Peace program, and particularly how to support Rotarians who are wanting to work to develop peace projects and to also to support training of peace builders around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was Patricia Garcia, AO. Thank you for giving us those insightful tips and showing the great work that you've done and how we can use peace and nonviolence to bring about a change in the world. Thank you so much for that. Now, that brings us to a conclusion for the first Gandhi Peace Symposium, Ahimsa Peace Symposium, which has been organized by the Saroni Roy Foundation and by the Rotary Club of Strathfield. And of course, we shouldn't forget that it's District 7-9. I'm glad some people did correct me, and I was just trying to test. It is 9675. Thank you so much. So I'm glad some people got it after this. So ladies and gentlemen, it has been fantastic, and it's left me with some thoughts as well. And I plan to do a little bit of Gandhian reading tonight. I'll pick up a book and maybe go through a few chapters. I recommend that those of you who are in a mood to explore and also introspect a little bit today, a good book or even the documentary Daughters of Destiny on Netflix is not a bad idea at all. But in conclusion, I'd like to invite Saroni and Rick, who have been instrumental in bringing this symposium together, to give a vote of thanks to all those involved and to all the attendees who are present. Thank you once again. I'd like to invite them and give a vote of thanks. Thank you.
Over to you, Saroni.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you, Rick. So thank you so much to, I'm just speechless, at all of you supporting this Ahimsa Peace Symposium. So I'll just thank the people who've been working tirelessly behind the scenes to bring this, make this a success. I'm actually dew-eyed in tears. And so I would start with President Taya Ponya, President of Strathfield Rotary Club, Rick Vasilla, Roy Ellis, David Hirsch, Raymond McCluskey, Rangarajan, Karthik Mohandas, of course, our wonderful MC, Pratik Chakravarti, Patricia Garcia AO, Anita Sajo, Jaya Challa, Srini Pilamari, Parvinder Bhatia, Ahsan Ali, Jesh Kumar, Rajiv Roy Chaudhary, Anjana Basnet Karki, Manbir Singh Kohli, Mikey Lee Young, Joe Kuri OAM, Pratibha Bhanashali, Indu Harikrishna, Kedar Pagadini Mat, and Pankaj Upadhyay. the artists and musicians behind the music concert who created that wonderful track, Pankaj Paul for music arrangement, synth guitar and bass guitar, Mandola Joy for santur, shritar and flute, Shubham Kanjalal on mandolin and dotara, Mrityunjoy Das for mixing engineer. Thank you so much to all of you. Now over to you, Rick.
Thank you, Saroni. And now we truly are on the home stretch, but there are just a few more thank yous that I'd like to make. Well, this does draw our inaugural Ahimsa Peace Symposium 2021 to an end. Firstly, my apologies that we have run a little bit over time today, but what a rich treasure of speakers and presentations we've had. And thank you all that are still here for remaining online for just another 1 minute. So thank you to everyone for joining us today. We do hope that you've all gained something worthwhile from today's event. And as I say, the wonderful addresses we've had from all of our speakers. Particular thanks once again to all our dignitaries. And very quickly, the High Commissioner for India to Australia, His Excellency Mr. Manpreet Vora, to all of our District 9675 Sydney to the Illawarra representatives, starting with District Governor Mr. Jeremy Wright AM, past District Governors Mr. Keith Roffey, Ms. Diane North, and I did notice a couple of other past District Governors join as guests, and I'd just like to acknowledge those today. Past District Governor David Croft from our very own Rotary Club of Strathfield. That's David Croft AM from the Rotary Club of Strathfield. And I did notice somebody from the Philippines, past District Governor Bing Garcia, District 3860, joining us from the Philippines. Thank you very much for joining us. Of course, everybody's favorite District Governor-elect and District Ambassador for Empowering Women and Girls, Dr. Janice Hall. Thank you, Janice, for joining us today and sharing that wonderful presentation discussion with us. District Governor nominee, Ms. Tonya Barnes, and District Membership Director, Mr. Renga Rajan, and all other Rotarians from around the world that have joined us here today. Once again, the Consul General of India in Sydney, the Honourable Mr. Manish Gupta, and all of our federal, state and local political representatives, including, of course, the Honourable Dr. Fiona Martin MP, Honourable Ms. Jodie McKay MP, Honourable Ms. Julia Finn MP, of course, via video, the Honourable Mr. Julian Lisa MP and Councillor Rena Jetty from the Hills Shire Council. A wonderful presentation from Dr. Sumankana Agarwal, and I'm sure we would have loved to have spent another half hour listening to the solution to violence in the world and peace conflict in the world. That presentation has been made available and we will share it. And of course, finally, Ms. Patricia Garcia AO, thank you. Thank you to all our visitors, all of our guests, as I say, all of our Rotarians from around the world for joining us here today. A special thanks, of course, and congratulations must go to Saroni Roy of the Saroni Roy Foundation for imagining, organising and pulling together this entire event. Let's give her a wild round of applause right now, virtually as best as we're able to. Congratulations, Saroni, for doing this. It has been a tremendous event. And also, of course, to the Strathfield Rotary President, once again, Taya Ponaya, for his support, encouragement and coordination of the Rotary collaboration for this event. A wonderful round of applause for Taya Ponaya, the President of the Rotary Club of Strathfield for this year. So folks, finally, this event has taken many long months of planning and coordination, especially for Saroni. The result is the great success we have experienced today. I think a truly wonderful outcome. I'm sure you will agree. Thank you on behalf of us all. Have a great day and continue, please, to promote peace and non-violence in our world. Goodbye and thank you.